This week on football, David C-word calls Klopp a C-word.
What do you think of Jurgen Klopp?
Possibly. I've got no interest in speaking to someone who's arrogant.
Chris is wilder than most managers. Substitute clearly wets himself. Messi hits the back of the net, and then so does Brad Guzan. Newcastle on the up, but their fans are going downhill fast. Rashford late for class. And Garnacho embraces his true supporters. Hello everyone, welcome to This Week on Football. It is me, Alex. If you're over with us on YouTube, what a great opportunity for you to go and like this video right now and maybe subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What a great opportunity. If you haven't already, hit that 5-star rating on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, which is where the majority of you tune into this show, then please do. It really, really helps us. And if you want to go and follow me individually on TikTok for all the best bits, my name is Alex Goalposts. It'll probably be there, popping up there in a minute. And if you want to see the channel on Instagram, it's at Goalpost TV. Right, guys, this week I have got my team of the week. I have got my day one fantasy of football recap. I'm going to be doing my weekend treble at the end of the show. But first, I read quite a sickening headline today, and it came from the Premier League. And as a football fan, if this doesn't make you mad, I don't know what will. The headline read, an individual who had been loading illicit streaming services onto so-called Fire Sticks has been sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in prison. That's right, they're locking people in a cage for 3 years because of Fire Sticks. Meanwhile, absolute danger heads are walking around the country, God knows what on their phone, Hugh Edwards, mentioning no names, who will likely never see the inside of a prison cell. And we have to just sit there and accept that. Guys, the reason why the streaming services exist is because if you would like to follow your Premier League side, and I'm just using Premier League teams as an example, it will cost you £50 or £40 roughly to £50 a month on Sky Sports. It'll cost you £22.50 on top of that for TNT coverage. And then on top of that, Amazon Prime for £9 a month. That means £888 of your hard-earned cash goes out of your bank account every year just to follow your team. That is on top of if you want to go and travel to a game, train services, getting food at the game, getting a program, enjoying anything that you might consume that normally might have cost £2 is now £10 in a drink or a burger. We have all of this going out. Meanwhile, Premier League profits have never been so high. And on top of that, they got the government in the back pocket and somehow locking people in cages for 3 years for, how dare they, uploading things to a Fire Stick. Just so we're clear, and for anyone who doesn't necessarily follow every single game, you actually cannot watch every single game live because the Premier League has a block on all 3 p.m. kickoffs, which is the majority of the kickoffs during a weekend, which means how else are you going to watch that game? The only reason people do, they're obsessed with their teams. They are fans, fanatics of their football club. They want to support their club and they want to watch every single minute. Therefore, they cannot watch it on a 3 o'clock kickoff. So they go onto an illegal stream and stream it for free. We are one of the only countries in the world that blocks you, its own citizens, its own supporters, from watching your own team. It's mental. It needs to change immediately. One of the things that makes me the most angry is actually the sentences outside of that for people doing some of the most disgusting, vile crimes that you could ever imagine. Hugh Edwards was one I mentioned, but that's just the one that we know about. Hugh Edwards will never see the back of the inside of a jail cell, and he had some of the most disgusting images a man can possibly possess, and he's got away with it. And I'm not going to mention what they are on here because I'll get kicked off, and because YouTube likes to censor things like this, and so does TikTok and all the rest of them. But you can guess. And meanwhile, like I said, uploading things to a Fire Stick will get you 3 years in a cage. Outrageous. This should make anyone mad. This should make even just someone who's not interested in football in the slightest mad, because the government somehow is in the back pocket of the Premier League. Because how else can you explain the fact that the government can come down this hard on something so harmless, so non-violent crimes, by the way, and you're locking people in cells? It's absolutely outrageous. It should make you as mad as it makes me. As you can see, I'm clearly furious. There is another issue I would like to raise as well before we move on to fun stuff, and this is something that is really close to my heart. I read a truly shocking headline on Sky News today, and the headline reads: England footballer Lucy Bronze has told Sky News that 99.9% of female players couldn't afford to retire and live off their earnings. Guys, this is a disgrace. And if you feel as strongly as me, you need to jump in and try and support them. This simply can't stand. This is an urgent appeal. If you, like me, think that we should ensure every female footballer, good or bad, deserves the right to stop working at 30, then you need to join me. In a nutshell, you're making these poor women work for nearly 12 years of their lives up until 30, and you're asking them to keep working past that, and they can't retire in their mansions. It's a disgrace. It needs to be changed. Please, guys, if you, like me, cannot sleep at night thinking about these poor women who can't retire at 30 years old, then join me in donating. It's an urgent appeal. You can join me on www.weneedhelpforwomen.org.uk/kill-me-now. In all seriousness, I saw that headline come up today, and I thought, are they spinning this? So there's one or two ways that you can spin this. Either she said that and it was an off-the-cuff comment, in which case Sky News are complicit in trying to create a massive, I would say, divide, and it is probably a divide between men and women in sport, which they're trying to exacerbate. Or she's actually said that, and she actually thinks that female footballers deserve to retire at 30 years old and sit back in their mansions or whatever they've got. And actually, I thought about this. I wanted to see what female footballers earn for them to say that, because as Lucy Bronze maybe isn't aware, 99.9% of people in the UK, and probably a higher percentage if that was possible, cannot retire at age 30. The only way you retire at age 30 is if you win the Euro Millions, and that is one in however 75 million people, whatever it is. Lucy Bronze is either massively out of touch, or Sky News are disgustingly creating a divide, and then I am now propagating that and pushing that even further. One of the two is happening, but I've seen plenty of female footballers talk like this. I think Alicia Lehmann, we did a little thing on Vince where he had to tell everyone that he thinks Alicia Lehmann's right, that Douglas Luiz earns more than her and they do the same job. We know it's the same job in theory, in the same way that, you know, a model for Next catalogue is not going to earn the same as Chloe or Courtney or Kim or whichever one of the Kardashians you want to say. There are levels to everything. Female footballers deserve the right to play the game and deserve the right to earn money from that, if that is possible. If it's not, then unfortunately that's just the way the world works. You either have people turn up to your game or you don't. And if women want to blame anyone for not watching football or not giving them money, then they should really look inwardly and look at themselves. Men follow men's sport. Women, you share an equal level of population in this country. If women want people to be interested, they need to target women, not men. Simple as that. www.womenneedhelp.co.uk/org/kill-me-now. Let's do a recap on this week's Premier League action. There was a really nice sight as a Man United fan, seeing Rude in his final game win that game so comfortably. And it's almost sad and bittersweet that he's leaving now, and he's going to leave Manchester United and probably do really well somewhere else. And we've got a new manager coming in. I'm not saying he should have been full-time manager, but the progression that you've seen under Rude and just the vast difference between what it was like under Ten Hag and what it is now like since he's left shows you everything. The manager wasn't right. The players weren't right in their own heads. Confidence was low, and I think that gave him a new lease of life. So yeah, that was great to see. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. Very, very comfortable for Liverpool. And Villa, I don't know. Did you see their set piece coach coming out onto the touchline during Villa corners and set pieces, and then very quickly got back after they conceded almost directly from one, and Liverpool counted on them time and time after again. You know, if he was a set piece coach and he does take responsibility for them, maybe he should take responsibility for them defensively as well, which he clearly wasn't, and Liverpool took full advantage of it, counting on them time after time. The Chelsea game that did happen was the Arsenal-Chelsea game, which was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. I actually think both teams will go close, but I don't think either team will win the league this season. It'll be interesting between those two who finishes third and fourth, because I think it will be between those two. Liverpool and Man City will probably be the teams that push for the title. City, of course, lost, and that's their fourth loss in a row, which is unheard of. I don't think it's ever happened to Pep Guardiola. It's definitely never happened to Man City. So, yeah, madness. I think a lot of people, however, did see that coming. I was watching the overlap with Ian Wright saying that he was pretty convinced Brighton were going to do a number on them. And lo and behold, they turned up and did that. One thing I wanted to pick out from that game, actually, is I think Erling Haaland is the only player that I can think of that would score that goal. The way he finished that is not a technical thing. It's a just pure desire, aggression to get on the end of things and get a goal. It was a goal that I don't think I would see any other striker in the Premier League score. It's not that it's an unbelievable goal. It's just so unique to him. His desire, his passion, his absolute ruthlessness is just unmatched. And I heard a lot of people quite recently, and it was when a video went viral when someone was asking who the best player in the Premier League was. Someone said Haaland, and actually I might have to agree with it, because he's probably the only player who is the best in his position in world football who's currently playing in the Premier League. He's the best striker in the world. I don't think anyone's even close to him. So yeah, can you then say maybe he is the best Premier League player? I think possibly. Anything else happened? There was a turnaround in form for Newcastle. They've obviously turned it around a little bit. Forest, it was always going to come down and not crashing down. I'm not going to say that because it's early doors, but Forest beaten at home and fairly comfortably in the end. I think Newcastle are turning it around. Forest, still a really great team, still going to go really well this season, but I think there was a bit of a reality check for them in that game. And anything else that I watched? I watched everything, by the way. I watch everything back, and I try and watch everything back, as many 90-minute games as I can. But when I watched back that Man United game, I did want to say also there's a really nice relationship developing in the midfield, and it'll be interesting to see how Amorim changes things when he comes in, because there is going to be someone who falls out, and it's going to be one of the midfielders, whether it's Mason Mount, who never gets a chance, Eriksen, who will never get a chance. I think Casemiro and Ugarte, they look really nice together. Let's do my team of the week so we can focus a little bit more on each individual performance. In goal, I'm going to start with Kelleher. It's clear when you've got a really top goalkeeper and you've got maybe a slightly overrated goalkeeper, when one is out and one comes in, that there's not much difference. And Kelleher coming in doesn't really make much difference to this Liverpool side. I would say Kelleher underrated, Alisson slightly overrated, and Liverpool keep another clean sheet. He made some really good saves as well. When I say he's an underrated goalkeeper, it's probably just a lack of playing time, and that's going to happen. But he's always been there for Liverpool in big moments when they've called upon him. And once again, Alisson misses out and he comes in and does absolutely fine. I got a bit of heat for saying Alisson was overrated last week. And I will continue to say that until my dying day. Right back, Nusayr Mazraoui. He actually played left back to start with and then moved over to the right when Dalot uncharacteristically came off. Thought he was really good, and he's had such a great couple of weeks at left back, and I'd like to see him actually play there a lot more because I think he offers so much down that left-hand side, attacking-wise, but also great defensively. Centre-backs, I've got the two Sociedad centre-backs that managed to overcome that Barcelona team, and it's Igor Zubeldia and Naif Agued. The Agued pick was because, for me, I watched him at West Ham, and I've always thought he was a decent player. He's actually very good on the ball, which I do like a centre-half to be, but him and Zubeldia did absolute wonders. They were without Lamine Yamal, and I will say that about Barcelona. But I think it's the first time Barcelona have not scored in, I think it's like a record amount of games. They have scored 40 goals already in La Liga in just 13 games, and Sociedad managed to keep them quiet. And yeah, it was just a really impressive performance. I had that game on along with the Napoli-Inter game on the side as well. So I was watching both at the same time, and them two just stood out for me. Left back, Marc Cucurella, thought he was brilliant against Bukayo Saka. It's one of those with Saka that I think if you get tight to him, he'll take it past you because he's very tricky, very intelligent player, Bukayo Saka. But if you step off him, he will just run at you. So it's a really difficult balance to master, and I think Marc Cucurella did it perfectly. Gary Neville said it in commentary, said he was getting a lot tighter to Bukayo Saka. I think it was the same on the other side from Gusto every time Martinelli got the ball. But I think they found that balance really well. And I don't know how you do it as a fullback, managing to defend against the likes of Bukayo Saka because he's so good. But he did it really well, kept him pretty quiet all game. Central midfield, let's go with a comeback of Martin Ødegaard. It's not necessarily that his game was so great. It was the individual moment of quality. He found that pass to find Martinelli, who slotted it away really well. Martin Ødegaard has been a massive miss for Arsenal. Now Ødegaard is back. I think Arsenal can get that form back together. Obviously, Saka, there's a partial doubt for him in the coming weeks. I'm sure he'd be fine. Arteta likes to overplay things and underplay things and never really let you know how the players are doing. But Ødegaard being back is absolutely massive for Arsenal. One of the players in the Premier League that I think could play in any team in the world. Alongside him, Scott McTominay. I mentioned that I watched the Napoli game against Inter. He scored the opener. It looked like Scott McTominay has found a home. It is so perfect for him. He is one of those players who plays with his heart on his sleeve. He's super passionate. He'll get everywhere, up and down the pitch. He has got so much quality and people don't realise it. The reason being, he's Scottish. I'm telling you now, if he wasn't Scottish, and I've said it for years, if he was Italian or even English, people would be rating him in a very different way. He has gone to Italy and the Italians genuinely are laughing at Man United for letting him go. They cannot believe that Man United would just let him go so easily. He scored the goal, like I said, but all-round great performance up and down the pitch. He's got so many great touches, and when you give him the ball, he can dribble past even top midfielders and defenders. Very underrated with the ball at his feet. So yeah, Scott McTominay had to be in there. I think he's been brilliant since he joined Napoli. And then finishing off that midfield, I mentioned his partnership with Casemiro. Manuel Ugarte, I think he's finding his feet at Man United now. This is probably the turning point where I don't think we'll see him come out of that team. Amorim obviously has a great relationship with him from Sporting, but in the Premier League, it's really difficult for a defensive midfielder to really find your feet and do it quickly. I think he's done it fairly quickly and he's done it very successfully. It will be really hard to get him out of that team if you're a defensive midfielder. It'll be interesting to see how Kobbie Mainoo fits into that system because, like I said, Casemiro and Ugarte seem to be a great little balance, and that introduction has massively improved Bruno Fernandes, giving him the license to get forward a little bit, maybe take his time a little bit and make the right decisions, not rushing things from deep and playing passes into nobody. I think Bruno Fernandes a little bit further forward, giving him that license and knowing that he doesn't have to track 30 yards back every time they lose the ball. I think is massive for Man United. So yeah, that's great. And I think that's Manuel Ugarte's influence all over. Right wing, Amad Diallo. This guy has to play week in, week out. It is his time. I said it at the start of the season. Erik ten Hag was probably the only person in the world that could manage to miss Amad Diallo's talent. Now he's gone. Amad should be a staple fixture in that Man United side. He is as good as anyone at Manchester United with the ball at his feet and running at a defender. For some reason, on this left-hand side, Marcus Rashford has decided that he no longer wants to beat players. He can. It's not an ability thing. And I don't think it's a coaching thing because he's been through many coaches and he sometimes wants to and sometimes just can't be bothered. And I don't know why. If Rashford had the same intent that Amad Diallo does when he's running at a defender, honestly, I think Man United could be really good. Amad Diallo is a breath of fresh air in this Man United side. He's got quality on the ball. He dribbles so well. He's such a clever player, can play passes through the lines, can give you lovely little assists like he did for Bruno Fernandes, that nice little flick. But he's just a really solid finisher. That left foot is a wand. He can score from distance, can score from close as well. And you just trust him running through on goal. And it's nice to feel like that about a Man United forward because it's been a while. I think he is probably has got the potential to be our best player. And look, he's still young. He's had this seasons out on loan. He's now finally in that Man United side and hopefully he doesn't move anywhere. I think it's signalled the departure of Anthony probably. I think it's been rumoured that he's asked to leave at the end of the season. And you can't blame him because Amad Diallo is far superior, as is Rashford on that side, as is Garnacho, and probably anyone else that we want to bring in as well. So it's a shame, but I think Amad Diallo, his fortune is Anthony's misfortune, but you can't say he hasn't had his chances. Left wing, Gabriel Martinelli. It's about time we saw something from Martinelli. It's been a long time. He had a bit of a stop-start season last season, really difficult for him, and he was pulled out the side quite a lot. He kind of got back into the side this season, and that was, I think, his best performance in a long time against Chelsea. He's a good finisher, and he's a clever finisher. And I watched that game, and I watched that goal. Obviously, he receives the ball, and there was the thought, I think, for most players, to take a touch and knock it back across goal. Martinelli, before the ball arrived at his feet, knew the finish he was going to take. And yes, it is almost a mistake for Robert Sanchez, but he takes it so quickly and knows what he's doing. He's so decisive. He just puts it in the back of the net before Robert Sanchez can react. So yeah, I think big hats off to Gabriel Martinelli. It's really tough to be an Arsenal player at this moment in time because you're expected a lot and maybe you haven't necessarily got all the best players around you. Once you've got Odegaard, obviously that's going to help any forward. But Martinelli is still very young. He still scored a lot of goals for Arsenal, put in some really big performances, still such a threat. I think his confidence hopefully will be back. And for Arsenal fans, I think that is a massive thing for them. Odegaard back, Martinelli's confidence back should turn them back into title challengers. And then finishing off my team of the week, João Pedro, finally back and makes a massive impact. Comes back against Man City. I think he got the assist and then scored the winner as well. What can you say? João Pedro for your fantasy teams it's got to be a must now, isn't he? 5.5 million or whatever he is. He's in my fantasy team from day one. I think he's in a few people's and we've all missed that kind of off the bench or kind of low priced striker getting you points, and he's back and scoring. He's a really good player and he's on penalties as well, so there should be plenty of fantasy points for him for the rest of the season if he can stay fit. Right, talking of fantasy, let's do my day one fantasy team.
One day or day one.
I've had a bit of improvement. I'm back up, I think, 2 or 3 places and finally into the top 10 of my own league, of my own game that I devised that I'm losing at heavily. Top of the table is still Liam. Liam Edgar's day one team is only 11 points ahead because Joe Constance is hot on his heels and he's making up incrementally small amounts of points every single week. He's chipping away and Joe, I think, probably pretty confident he's going to catch him. Third place is Vince. That's Goalpost TV's very own Vince. He is at 629, and I know that seems like quite a big gap, 30 points, 25 points, but that can be swallowed up in a week. Tom's team is still going strong as it is. He is just the worst person. You've got Dale's team. I said Dale was going to be strong this season. Frank's team with a monster 85 points. Well done, Frank. I think very impressed, and he hasn't stopped talking about that this week. So yeah, well done, Frank. Reese's team dropped down a peg. Tough week for Reese and Jodie's team. And then you got my team who did okay. Finally into the top 10. And Brandon's team. Brandon, who accidentally captain Isak, obviously made the most of the Isak points this week, and he's back up into the top 10 as well. I think we're level points, 559 each. Be interesting. I think we're nearly reaching the halfway point. I think after Christmas we'll get a real vibe for who has got no chance and who's running away with it. At the moment, nobody's running away with it. I think Liam's just that really strong front runner, and I really like his team, and Chris Wood's absolutely flying, and who the hell would put Chris Wood in their team? I don't know, but he did, and it's working. Right, let's do my weekend treble. I've got to apologise once again, and this time I can't really work out why or how, but I didn't pick a single selection correctly last week. We're on one of the worst runs I think I've ever seen. I think it's now 5 weeks in a row that we've lost, and some weeks it's been by one or like a goal late on, whatever, and you can legislate for that. This week, I got 0 selections correct, and one of them was Man City to win. So unbelievable. We're going to get back. Don't worry. We're still £62 up this season if you were backing it with a tenner. £620 up if you were backing it with 100, and £6,200 if you were backing it with £1,000 because you're a psychopath. This week's selections, which are definitely going to come back in. It's the international break. It's got to happen. My 3 picks: Iceland will draw against Montenegro. Netherlands over 1.5 goals against Hungary. And final pick is MK Dons versus Cheltenham over 2.5 goals. £10 on, returns you £34.47. And finally, we can be in the green. I don't like seeing all of these red crosses on my screen. I like green ticks, not red crosses. There's a nice big £62 and 4 pence green tick, which makes me feel good. But 6 more weeks of losses and that will be all gone. So that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Be fine. Stick with me. I'll be back next week, next Wednesday, and every Wednesday until the end of the season. Enjoy the international break. I know I won't.